Welcome to Climbing Together, the small business experience. I'm Beth Houtrow, founder of Climb the Small Business Book Club, and every episode I talk to a small business owner about a mistake that they've made and what they learned from the experience. Mistakes are inevitable, perfection's impossible, so let's embrace the mistake. And today we're so excited to welcome Chrishella Roché to the podcast. Chrishella, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Hi, my name is Chrishella Roché. I own VIBEZ Creative Arts Space. We're located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we highlight all forms of art and artists. We have a studio where you can come in to do like paint parties, arts and crafts, ceramics, wooden projects, string art, all types of fun things. And then we showcase a ton of artists throughout our studio.
That is very cool. That's amazing. How long have you guys been in business as a brick and mortar?
Thank you. We've been in business for 5 years. Just this past March made 5 years. So really excited about that.
That is very cool. I'm sure Milwaukee is much better off for having you there to help people, celebrate art. That's so cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So we're here to talk about mistakes. So tell me about a mistake that you made with your business and what you learned from that experience.
As you can imagine, over the last 5 years, I've learned a lot. But starting out like year one or like creation era of VIBEZ, my first biggest mistake was not reading my lease in full. So I read it, of course, I read it and I was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. But there was a lot of what we discussed and it just made sense. I was like, oh yeah, like we can do this, we can do that. But because it was not actually included in the lease, when it came to me doing those things or wanting to implement the things that we discussed, it became like, no, you can't do that. That's not what your lease says. And, for me at the time, it was like, well, we talked about this,
Yeah, you had like the verbal agreement.
We talked about this. We've had tons of meetings about these things. And now you're telling me I can't do this? What? And so, making sure you have reading your lease by yourself, of course, but then also making sure you have a good legal team who's going to be in your corner to also read the lease. And then when things may go awry or, differently than how you imagined, those legal entities can step in and work in your favor. So I'm glad I had that. It took me a while to get the perfect person behind me. But in the beginning, it was like, this is my first business. So we were just talking about all these things and how we wanted to do stuff. And then when it came to the implementing those things, it was like, nope, you can't do that. You can't do that. And that was like, it was like, like a punch to the chest. And I'm glad I was able to work that out in my favor, but it was definitely a learning curve for like moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I would totally be guilty of that. I would trust from the conversation that we had that, you agreed, it was fine. And it's not in the lease, but maybe that's just not the place that formality would show up kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. I could definitely see myself letting something like that happen, especially when I first got started. So
and definitely making sure though, making sure you have like a paper trail of things. That's always good. Although for me in my situation, although some of the things that we discussed verbally were not in the lease, it was in writing because we had also discussed it via email. So once I got a good legal team behind me, I was able to, work certain things in my favor. So It can work out, but if you jump ahead and work on it on the front end of things, it'll be even better.
Yeah. Well, and that's an important thing for people to know is that contracts don't always have to be formal. And if you have written agreements that you request something and they say, yes, that we can do that, even if it's not in legal terms or write a formal contract, it can still be a binding agreement. So yeah, that's really good to know. You might need a lawyer to help you assert that it's a binding agreement, but yeah.
Right.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are going to appreciate that advice as they're getting started with their first lease. Okay. And so if you had one piece of advice for an entrepreneur just getting started, what would you say to them?
Ooh, so I like to share this when I do like workshops or like speaking engagements. I think that always, having your money like set aside or saved up to go towards your business, right? That's important because you're going to need small things like printing here and marketing here, and eventually you want to pay yourself, right? But if you can do crowdfunding and get grants or like a small business loan once you like get going, because there are so many things that you do not realize or don't know that you'll need money for. Of course, you have like taxes, and then you have insurance and unemployment insurance, and if you have a like a work vehicle, you have to have a certain type of insurance for that, or depending on what you're selling inside of your brick and mortar, the insurance may be higher. So like if you sell like beverages, like alcoholic beverages or something, like the insurance is higher for that. There are so many different taxes that you don't know about. Like when fees, you come into this, like taxes and fees, and oh my goodness, if you get behind, I'm sure that's like even worse. So there's so many things. And then if you get in, like once you get employees, you'll need, like backup money to like make sure you can pay them while also like paying yourself. And like me, I have a storefront, I have a brick and mortar, so we need materials and equipment and stuff like that. So there are so many things. Like when you're making your business plan, think of every little thing so that you actually truly know like how much money it's going to take to start up those like first 6 months, because you're going to need, like for me, I own an art studio. So you can imagine like we go through a lot of brushes, a lot of canvas, a lot of paint, aprons and tablecloths and promotional materials. Like we go through a lot of that because our events are like constantly going. So like when I first did my business plan, I was like, okay, well, this is how much this costs. And I was like, oh, wow, that's like way more than what I've saved up. And so then I was able to do something awesome where I was able to look into crowdfunding or loans. There's a program called Kiva Loan. There's a KIVA. So that's really cool, where it's like crowdfunding. But in the end, you end up paying the money back with like a 0% interest over like 3 to 5 years or something like that. But like they can help you raise a nice amount of money. And for me, thankfully, I was able to get support to go for a Kiva loan, and I had enough supporters to like pour into that loan because they believed in what we were doing. So that was one of the ways that I started once I realized like, oh, I need more money than what I saved up. And I was able to like get some more, but you there's so many things that you don't know that you'll need until you need it. So definitely like I would say if you felt like if you've saved up, I'm just going to throw a random number out there, but if you've saved up like 20K, like you're probably going to need like 3 times that amount.
Especially with a brick and mortar.
Yes, because you have rent and it's so many things that you don't realize you need, that you'll need going forward. So you just want to make sure you're in the best like position to cover those expenses for sure.
Yeah. And I find people tend to be over optimistic about how quickly they'll make enough revenue to cover their expenses. And so they're like, oh no, this is my first month and then I'll just pay for everything from revenue. I was like, but you might not. In your first month, you might not make that much money. Yeah.
After, like, in the first month, like, everybody's excited and they're like, oh, I want to support. But then you have to, like, how do you get those people to come back? Like, how do they become like a return customer? And how do you attract new people? So, yeah, they're very, people can be very optimistic about like how they're going to get things, going.
Yep. Definitely. And I love that you were talking about Kiva. Kiva is amazing. I know I supported a friend of mine has a bookstore in North Carolina, and she bought a book truck so that because there were no bookstores in like local towns. She bought a truck and turned it into a book truck. And it was such a fun way to be able to support her in a small amount, but a whole bunch of people supported her, right? With these small loans through Kiva, and she got the money. So Kiva is, it's an amazing platform, especially when you have friends and family who might want to help you out, but it gives you that built-in formality of a loan, right? Like the structure is clear. You don't have to worry about when you're supposed to pay them back or what the interest rate is, or if there isn't, it's just built into Kiva, taken care of. So for anyone looking for that friends and family or community support, I think Kiva's, a very good way to do it.
It's definitely like an amazing way to get started for sure.
Yeah, nice. Very cool. All right. So this podcast is brought to us by Climb the Small Business Book Club, and our two tenets are continual learning and community. So talk to me about continual learning. What do you do to make sure that you keep learning so you can run your business well?
So, okay. When I first started out, when I just like had an idea, there's a organization here called WIBIC, WWBIC, and I took a class there. So I took a class called Start, Run, and Grow Your Business, because that's literally what I was trying to do. So I took that class. They literally took me through every detail of my business plan, my financial projections, like everything.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, that's really great. And then, they continue to offer additional classes throughout the year. Like every year they have a ton of classes that you can sign up for. Some are free, some are paid. But so far I've done like QuickBooks sessions through WIBIC, because you want to know like what your profit and loss statement looks like and where you can improve, right? So I've done courses with them. I continue to grow by like attending different workshops and cohorts. I've done a rise through the African American Chamber of Commerce. I've done a boot camp, a business boot camp through the African American Black Chamber of Wisconsin. I've done the Biz Starts Biz Institute course, which I love. And through all of these, we've touched on basic things like, how to start, how to scale. And I've attended the cohort through Scale Up. So nice. I'm always learning new things, whether it's, with education or within the business, and how to do and be better. So, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. All right. Well, it's clear that you were passionate about continual learning, and I love it. And I love that you found so many ecosystems to support you, right? So many people try and do it alone, or they find one organization and they kind of stick with that. But you have clearly tapped into every resource you could find, both nationally and locally. And that's amazing, because they're there. People just don't always realize, right, that these things are out there to help and support them.
Yes.
So this podcast, though, you were introduced to us by Biz Starts. So that's a community we love in Milwaukee. Can you share a little bit with me about Biz Starts and what it meant to you to be a Biz Starts in their cohort and in their class, and what that did for you?
So I love Biz Starts. Like, they have been so supportive since day one. With their offices, they do like office hours where you can come in. So if you don't have if you don't have a standard office. So before I had my studio, I would need place to work. And so they have office hours where you can come in and do your work and like actually bounce ideas off of other entrepreneurs. And you kind of, everybody kind of like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Well, I was thinking about adding like music or drinks to my paint and sip type of thing. And so like it was a great atmosphere to just bounce ideas off of one another. And then they had business coaches there too. So not only are you able to like bounce ideas off of other entrepreneurs, but you can have like a one-on-one with a business coach. And they know, like what you're going through. They will help you find out like, I needed a certain license to do art, or an what is it called when your occupancy license. So you can't just be like, oh, okay, I signed a lease with this, this person so I can use their building. Well, yeah, you did, but you also need an occupancy license. And that's something that you don't know in the beginning, right? And so they helped me like figure out those details, who to contact, and then gave me like a deep dive into my business. And that was like in the beginning. And then throughout this like entire 5 years, I've done Biz Starts Institute, where we met like once a week, every Saturday in the mornings, and done like just a deep dive into whatever the topic was for that day. And then also they have like wonderful events where they highlight all of the businesses that they've worked with throughout the year. And I've been thankful enough to like attend those events as a business. And I've made wonderful connections. People love our art. They love our paint kits. And they've helped us grow. So they help and walk us through like every step of the process. I love Biz Starts.
Okay. Well, great. I'm sure
so much.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear that. And well, Chrishella, that's our podcast today. Thanks so much for joining me. It's been a delight.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
This podcast is brought to you by Climb the Small Business Book Club, where entrepreneurs go to learn, discuss, apply, and grow. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or follow us on Instagram at Climb Book Club. And always remember, mistakes are inevitable, perfection's impossible. So let's embrace the mistake.